Hello everyone, thank you for attending my presentation. My name is Andreas Michael. I'm with Cipriana Petroleum Technology, and the title of my speech is The True Market Value of a Good Petroleum Engineer, a Technical Perspective. The number of the paper is 206-272, and I highly encourage everyone to go to OnePetro and download and read this paper, because there is additional information on more subtopics than what I can discuss during a 20-minute talk. I got motivated on articulating on this theme after an article I co-authored with The Way Ahead, which is SPE's digital publication for young professionals, titled, having a very similar title, which I believe was published in April 6, 2020, and became very popular amongst our audience. What happened was that as I was researching to prepare for the parts that I was writing, I came across some realities and facts about our world, which on hindsight were right in front of me and everybody else. However, I don't see around much, and I thought that it would be nice for somebody to put down on paper. Looking at the current state of our world, and when I say our world, I mean the world of petroleum engineers, we come across a number of trends where they are problematic, or they are prone to problems for the future, and they are largely ignored, and I personally don't like because of those reasons. The first one is lack of emphasis and hence appreciation on domain expertise when it comes to our discipline, which is petroleum engineering. And the second big one is rhetoric on our discipline being rebranded to energy engineering, or our society to Society of Professionals in Energy. And although this talk is at large innocent, maybe a little bit populistic, there is nothing really more harmful for petroleum engineers and petroleum engineering, really. Of course, not many people see that. These trends bring some adverse results, which one of them is what we see now: the enrollment drops in petroleum engineering academic programs, which is wrongly attributed to low oil prices. Low oil prices don't help, but it's not really the reason why people don't go to study petroleum engineering anymore. And another adverse effect is, which is the saddest actually, is that the petroleum engineering discipline is in danger of dilution. And it's not really because there are not oil and gas jobs around. It's because some people have, I think, wrong ideas, and they force us all to take some wrong steps. Before diving into the details of my presentation, let's see a bird's eye view of the world's energy mix for the last 50 years, starting from 1970 until the last year we had good data when I was authoring this paper was 2019, the last year before COVID. Here we see the world's energy mix being broken down into three large groups. With the purple line, we have the fossil fuels, which consist of coal, oil, and natural gas. With the burnt orange line, you have the renewables, and everything else is the gold line, other. We see that from 1970, we have an increase in fossil fuels from about 200 exajoules per year to almost 500 in 2019. And I don't really need to explain what an exajoule is amount-wise, but that really means a 150% increase from 1970 to 2019. And as far as renewables, you really need a magnifying lens to see what's going on all the way until mid-2000s or late 2000s, around 2008, and then they start rising until a modest value in still small value in 2019. But don't hold your breath. It doesn't seem like they are doing anything significant in the mix yet. Now, if I take the last year of each of the 5 decades, 79, 89, 99, 09, and 19, and see the proportion of each category in the world's energy mix, we see the fossil fuels slightly decreasing from 91% to 84% from 79 to 2019, although there is a small increase from 99 until 09. Now, don't forget that the 91% in 1979 is a much smaller value, absolute quantity-wise, compared to the 84% in 2019. Now, renewables reach up to 5% in 2019, and out of this 5%, the 2.2% is from wind and 1.1% from solar. And that 3.3% in total from solar and wind comes after decades and decades of hard research, a lot of R&D money, and also favorable treatment when it comes to contribution to the grid, etc. So this number, this 5%, is as big as it can get, and this 84% is as low as it can get. Like regarding non-market forces. Now, regarding our staff, petroleum engineers, let me make the case for domain knowledge, which is something that you don't really hear about very often, especially these days. We can take our discipline and divide it into a number of sub-disciplines. I did that, I think, in 2017, one day when I was in the aeroplane, and I got 16 sub-disciplines. And then I made 8 pairings of those 16 sub-disciplines in total. So each pair contained sub-disciplines which were related to each other. Either one was more theoretical, the other one was more applied, or they had some overlaps. And then I tried to arrange them in a certain logical manner, considering the nature of E&P operations. And these are here: geology and petrophysics, drilling and well completions, formation, evaluation, and geostatistics, production, engineering and artificial lift, geomechanics and hydraulic fracturing, reservoir engineering and modeling, thermodynamics and enhanced oil recovery, and surface facilities and economics. Of course, geology is petroleum geology, and economics is petroleum economics. Now, what is unique for petroleum engineers is that for tackling a multifaceted petroleum engineering problem involves knowledge of more than one subdiscipline, usually. You will rarely see a complete problem that involves just one of those 16 subdisciplines. And petroleum engineers are in the best position, a petroleum engineer with solid educational background and solid experience, we'll get into that later, is best attempt in solving such problems. And in addition to that, when it comes to the classroom, petroleum engineers are the best people to put together a curriculum or a course where it will be designed top-down instead of bottom-up. By top-down, I mean that they will design a course that it will contain subtopics that are based on the theme of the course rather than their own knowledge, which will overlap to a certain degree with the course overall theme, which is what happens normally when you have a non-petroleum engineer designing a course or a curriculum. Now, somebody being a petroleum engineer, like from school, doesn't necessarily mean that he's a good petroleum engineer, and somebody having industry experience related to petroleum engineering doesn't necessarily mean that he's a good petroleum engineer. So let's tackle this first, will be the academia. Again, in 2017, I had a lot of free time in 2017. I took course evaluations that were publicly available for a public school petroleum engineering department, and I came up with this drawing, which is actually drawn to scale. So I took the average scores of each of the faculty and divided them into two groups actually. People with no petroleum engineering education and no industry experience. People with petroleum engineering education and industry experience, and I'm talking about by people, I mean faculty, and then the average of the department. And you see a clear trend that the people who do not have petroleum engineering education and no industry experience, they don't do well according to their own students compared to those who have petroleum engineering education and industry experience. Specifically, faculty members who hold at least one petroleum engineering degree scored higher than their colleagues who did not. Faculty members with professional petroleum industry experience scored significantly higher than those who did not have industry experience. And by industry experience, I don't mean an internship. I mean like at least I think it was 3 years or something. And the highest score gap was between the average of the faculty members combining petroleum engineering education and industry experience with the average of the rest of the faculty who did not have any of those merits. And that was about 3/4 of the standard deviation. Now, I'm not going to say which department, which school that those values were taken, but I don't think it's too much of a guess. Now, looking at the schools, the public petroleum engineering, the petroleum engineering departments in public U.S. universities, we see that I looked at 6. 3 of them, they do pretty much okay. They have upwards of 70 of faculty, employ upwards of 70% of faculty with petroleum engineering, at least one petroleum engineering degree. I would personally expect that number to be between 80 and 90, even higher, ideally. But okay, 78% is not bad. 73, 71, okay. Then there is some other schools that another school that has a lot of faculty members and has about 2/3 of them having at least one petroleum engineering degree. And I guess you have a big number of faculty, so it might a smaller percentage would make sense, but I think 67%, 66 is still low. Then you have a department which has mostly geology, geologenic, as we call it, character. So I would expect a lower percent there, and we see 52. And then you have a clear anomaly at 38. Now, a fundamental question is how an academic can teach state of art in a technology area without any active participation in the development of this technology. That's one question that I have in mind when I look in this plot here. And the second one is like a statement that academics without relevant background and experience can very easily be off target and can lack industry contacts vital for sourcing research funds and making informed decisions on which R&D direction to follow. And that sort of is trends that we see today. There is quite a separation between the academic R&D projects with the industry funded R&D projects, either in R&D groups of big oil and gas super majors or service companies versus academia. And this is actually sad. They need to be going hand in hand, I will say. Now, when it comes to R&D funding versus fossil fuel consumption, as we see in this plot, there is a big disconnection. As you see, I have here with gray the coal consumption going up, slowing down recently, but still you can say it's on the uprise. Oil certainly going up with green, and natural gas for sure going up with red. And then with the solid purple line, we have the public R&D funding, R&D funding on fossil fuel related projects. And as we see, the funding is going down, excluding 2009. The spike is due to the economic stimulus package that came out then for the crisis of 2008. So we see that we consume more and more fossil fuels, and yet the public funds that are allocated to their research is decreasing. Now, these values in billions might seem big, and I'm talking about the right axis, which is related to the solid purple line. However, in regards to proportion of the total public R&D spending, this is very small. It's actually only 5%. And you have 16% going on for renewables and 79% for others. And others includes other stuff like carbon sequestration, etc., etc. While if you compare that to the energy consumption, 5% is actually only coming from renewables, 11% from other, and then 84% from fossil fuels. In conclusion, good knowledge of all petroleum engineering subdisciplines and how these relate between each other should give petroleum engineering graduates an advantage over non-petroleum engineering graduates. Academic departments must combine curricula and faculty members capable of teaching students and giving them the skills that are desired to succeed in the oil industry. Everything else should come secondary. Class syllabi and program curricula should be designed in a top-down manner where the content is dictated by the overarching themes rather than the knowledge of the faculty. The faculty should already have the knowledge to teach what a top-down designed syllabus mandates. And hiring faculty with inadequate backgrounds tends to promote an unorthodox bottoms-up approach where the course design is controlled by the faculty's narrow expertise, overlapping with the course theme rather than what needs to be in the course, which is pretty much point 4 succeeds point 3. And in summary, it should be that good petroleum engineers should be teaching new and upcoming petroleum engineers. And with that, thank you very much. I'm really sorry I couldn't dive in more detail on those topics, but please read the paper because it's pretty elaborate. Thank you, and go Tigers.